The risks of not having a will. A lot of people think about wills, they have a vague idea about what a will is, but they don't necessarily know what happens if they don't have one. And there are another whole group of people who have kind of wrong ideas about what happens if they don't have a will. For instance, some people think that the government just gets all their money. That's not the case. But here are some of the problems that come up if you don't have a will in place before you pass. One, you're not going to be able to appoint your executor. Now, the language has changed. People hear the word executor. We now refer to them as a personal representative. The role is the same. It's just new language. And by choosing that person, you're picking someone that you trust in order to deal with your affairs in a way that you would hope them to, i.e. follow your instructions, make sure your wishes are met, and all that. If you don't have someone, then someone's going to have to apply to the courts to be able to manage your estate, and it might not be the person you want. They might not deal with things the way you want. They might not deal with your assets or make decisions how you'd want them to. So it's better to have that set up in advance in your will. Number two, you could lose the opportunity, well, you will lose the opportunity of picking guardians for your dependent children or for any dependent adult that you're responsible for. And the problem with this is you want your kids to be raised in a manner that is consistent with how you would have raised them if something happens to you. You want to make sure that from an education standpoint, who their friends are, the activities that they do, religious-based items, you want to make sure that your kids are raised how you would want them to be raised. If you have a will, you're able to pick the person who is a guardian for them. Your kids would then go to live with them, and it gives that person will have the opportunity to raise your children for you. If you don't, someone has to make an application to the court again to be able to be guardian for your children or dependent adult, and that means that there could be competing interests. There could be a person that you would not want as the only person who applies to take that role, and they could raise your kids in a way not consistent with how you want, or maybe even they're just looking to get at assets you have and to take the kids in order to get that money. Avoid that. Make sure you have it in your will. Next, when we do wills, we usually do a power of attorney and a personal directive. Those are two documents that are really important for people, really important, especially for young people, old people. You want to have them in place. An enduring power of attorney or power of attorney gives somebody the ability to deal with your assets, your dollars, your house, your business, your company, all those things. Without it, someone has to make an application to the court for trusteeship, and then they have the ability to manage your stuff, but that can take 2 or 3 months, and that's long enough for things to fall apart and things to get repossessed or there to be bigger problems. Also, it could be someone who you wouldn't necessarily trust to do that, and if it's a situation where you lose capacity, but like 2, 3, 4, 5 months later you get your capacity back, you want to make sure that someone's managed things well, and that often involves you picking the person who can do that. Next, in terms of a personal directive, that's people who make medical decisions for you or personal decisions for you. So whereas a power of attorney deals with stuff, a personal directive deals with you, the type of care you get, the type of housing you'd be in, the type of care that is withheld in those situations, any number of things that deal with your person. So that's going to be really important for you to have in place. Next, in terms of children, we've talked about this a little bit with kids, but when your kids get your estate, we, in a will, will often set up what's called a minor beneficiary trust. So it's where funds are held in trust for a minor, and then they'll be distributed as your request. So daily living expenses, education, that can come out of your capital or from the interest earned from your estate. But at 18 years old, you probably don't want your 18-year-old just getting a whole pile of cash. That often goes very poorly. They spend it on cars, on booze, on all kinds of things, travel, instead of using it for things that would be consistent with what you would want. Not a lot of 18-year-olds have the ability to manage money well. By having a will, it gives you the opportunity to say, yeah, you can use this stuff for education and living expenses, but you're not going to get the bulk of my estates until, maybe you give 25% at 20 years old and another 25% at 22 or 25 years old, more at 30. You get to pick. It's entirely within your control, and we build that into your will. Next, sometimes we have problems when an estate happens and there's no will in place where the executor gets to pick, how are we going to pay off taxes? How are we going to pay off debts? We're going to sell off this, that, the other thing. By doing a proper estate plan, you can account for all those things and make sure there's a good structure in place so that taxes and debts are dealt with, things like capital gains or your final tax return, and that people aren't having to sell off assets that they might want to have. One other one is dealing with your assets. If you wanted to make a gift to a charity, having a charity in your estate can often be good from a tax perspective, but it might be also your best wishes, like something that you feel is important, whether it's like Heart and Stroke Foundation or the SPCA because you love pets. You can only do that if you have a will. If you can't with an intestacy, that's all gone. Next, in terms of who gets what, that's going to be determined if you don't have a will by the laws of intestacy. So that means there could be situations where a parent you haven't seen in 20 years comes into the picture and takes your estate because they're entitled to it. It could be that someone that you wouldn't want it to go to gets all those funds. On the other side, it could be someone who you really want something to go to, and it could be cash, like we're talking about a charity or a specific individual. It could be your prized tractor or collection where it goes to someone who's not going to just sell it at a garage sale, but they're going to value it and really enjoy it, that you want to give it to specific people. With a will, you can set up those gifts. You can say, I give this to this person. I give this number of dollars to that person. It's all within your control. Intestacy, it's gone. It doesn't happen. Next, there could be delays. So in terms of your loved ones getting your assets and the money and things and all that stuff, there could be more delays when there isn't a will in place. So by having it in place, it just things make them run much more smoothly and takes a lot of the pressure and stress off the people who are managing your estate. One other thing, explaining your wishes. So you might have allocations that you make, and you can have them where people, you say, I give it to this person because this person really valued this. I know my mom has told me, I haven't seen her will, but it's probably like 50 pages long because she has an explanation of different things and special gifts she's given to certain people. You can have it as big or as small as you want. An advantage also, if you're explaining things, is people that you want to purposely exclude from your will. To kind of shore up that exclusion so they can't fight it, you can say, I am not giving money to this person because during the course of my lifetime, I gave them $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to start up their business or whatever. Whatever explanation that is right to you, you can include in your will. Last, in terms of your last wishes for your body, in a will we can put in whether like cremation or burial or what you want in terms of those last wishes of yours so that they're all met. Overall, having a will is important because it lets you make sure that your last intentions on this earth are met by your family and it's all reflected in how things are handled.